most hyped interstate ever.
Interstate 68 is an oftentimes beautiful road. It travels through the Appalachian Mountains in western Maryland and through about 30 miles of West Virginia. It's a lovely drive. As we can see here, I-68 extends from Morgantown, West Virginia, home of the University of West Virginia, to Hancock, Maryland, where it becomes the main line of I-70 heading towards the big cities on the coast. You're watching Control City Freak. This is the YouTube channel where we talk about interstate highways and the places they're signed to go to. This might be the first video we make money on. Yay! I really appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much. All right, we are going to be talking first about Eastbound I-68. Eastbound I-68 begins here in Morgantown with the junction with I-79. So 68 East is initially signed for Cumberland, that is Cumberland, Maryland. Though I-79 was signed for Morgantown, we do get some Morgantown exits here on I-68, so we have our list of our 2 Morgantown exits. And here is our first mileage sign along I-68 in West Virginia. We get Cheat Lake, Rooston Mills, and Cumberland as the final one, fittingly at 68 miles away. So West Virginia is only signing West Virginia towns other than Cumberland itself. Here's a view of Cheat Lake, pretty cool view here. And now Maryland welcomes you. Google Street View throughout Maryland is pretty bad, so I do apologize for the blurriness here. And here's some blurriness there. Garrett County almost has a more impressive sign to welcome you than Maryland itself does. The Maryland sign is all right too. We see that Cumberland is signed pretty much from the get-go on Maryland. This is one of the early Maryland exits. And as we go, we see Junction 219, Frostburg, and Cumberland. So they're not signing anything beyond Cumberland, even though this road will be leading towards stuff much bigger than Cumberland. Here's a look at downtown Cumberland and of I-68. This is a picture I took the one time I went to Cumberland in 2002. Here's another view of I-68 itself in its viaduct over downtown Cumberland. And in Cumberland, we see the signs are for 68 East Hagerstown, which, I don't know, that doesn't seem great. Seems like you may as well skip that and move on to Baltimore or Washington. That last picture, I think, was from 2015. This one's a little more recent, from 2018, and it says Hancock instead of Hagerstown, which is even worse. This is a good mileage sign, Hancock 35, Hagerstown 66, Baltimore 143, but it doesn't really reflect what signs you see on the interchanges. Baltimore or Washington should be the primary control city of this entire road, in my opinion, because it's not really that long and those are such big cities. Cumberland, not so big, really. Here's Sideling Hill. I think this is the last part of I-68 to be complete. This was a pretty huge engineering project here. This might be the high point of 68 at 1,269 feet, although there might be a higher point, I'm not sure. And here we are meeting with I-70, where I-68 ends. So we get 70 signed for Breezewood and Hagerstown. And we do have the exit for US 522 before we actually meet the interchange with 70, before dumping into 70 East. All right, now let's talk about Westbound I-68. So, I-68 Westbound is pretty unique. A commenter mentioned that I-24 Eastbound seems to be maybe the most hyped interstate in the country, but I-68 West says hold my beer, as it is
the most hyped interstate ever.
All right, here we start on I-270. Before it even meets I-70, near Frederick, there's a sign saying I-68 is 58 miles ahead via I-70. You still have to get onto I-70 to take it. Wow. And on I-70 itself, we also get one for 58 miles ahead, about 5 miles out of Frederick. So that's interesting too. I wonder why they went with 58. Is Maryland Department of Transportation a big fan of the second greatest outside linebacker of all time, Derek Thomas? Maybe so. This is on I-81 going north into Maryland. And as soon as you get into Maryland on I-81, you get 268, use exit 4. This is a few miles away. Then you get another sign on northbound I-81, 268 Cumberland, use 70 west. Going southbound on I-81, you get the same thing, 268 Cumberland, use 70 west. Here on I-70, we have next exit is Maryland Highway 68. For I-68, the National Freeway, stay on 70. Now 10 miles out, we get 68 National Freeway, alternate route to Ohio and points west. I always thought this was a weird one because I-68 doesn't go anywhere near Ohio, and it doesn't dump you into a road that goes to Ohio either. Why Ohio? Anyway, Maryland is obviously just trying to keep people on 68 for as long as possible because 68 goes through Maryland instead of staying on 70 and going into Pennsylvania. Now 2 miles out, we get junction 522 and 68. And finally, we get a kind of normal sign, Cumberland 1/2 mile, 70 sign for the infamous Breezewood. We get one more warning in case people on the left aren't paying attention, 6840 West Cumberland, next left. And finally, after all the hype, we get the interchange to westbound I-68. Our first mileage sign on I-68 lists Cumberland at 36, and we already get mention of Morgantown at 104. Here's the image we started with. This is I-68 going into Sidling Hill. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. And here we are in downtown Cumberland once again. Here's one of the few overhead signs that exist between Hancock and Morgantown. And here's another look at 68 going through downtown Cumberland. From what I understand, Cumberland is not doing so well these days, and much like Trinidad, Colorado, I wonder if it's because it's kind of a small town that they decided to build an interstate directly through. Usually with a small town, they will route it around the town instead of going right through the center of town, since it doesn't take long to get around town anyway. In Cumberland, we get a sign for 68 West Frostburg. So they're not signing Morgantown here, they're giving us Frostburg. Guessing that's because Frostburg State University is there, but I'd just sign Morgantown here. Getting on to 68 here, we get no control cities other than Green Street. Green Street. Back on the road, now we are at 6 to Frostburg and 66 to Morgantown. Here in Frostburg, 68 is signed for West Morgantown. This one's kind of interesting to me. So Friendsville, Morgantown, that makes sense. But why are we getting 219 south? This is the same interchange where we get 40 west, which is a much more important road, as it's the only road that actually does go to Ohio and west along I-68. But Maryland wants to sign 219 instead of 40 because 219 keeps you in Maryland, 40 takes you to Pennsylvania. Here is the exit in question. I've actually used this exit before. I've used US 40 and 68 to get around paying tolls on the PA Turnpike in the past. Nearing West Virginia, we don't have any exits left, so we get Hazeltown Road and Morgantown are the only things signed. West Virginia, as always, does a fantastic job with their Welcome to West Virginia sign. And at interchanges in West Virginia, we are signed for Cumberland and Morgantown. Now we get Brewston Mills 6, Morgantown 23, Washington, PA 75. Wonder why they're going with that instead of south, since 68 angles south around Morgantown. But then again, a lot of traffic is using 68 to bypass the Pennsylvania Turnpike, so that could be the reasoning. Here is, so far as I know, the only pull-through sign on I-68. We get 68 West Morgantown right here. And we end 68 here where we meet I-79. 79's control cities are abysmal. South Fairmont, North Washington. And it doesn't even say Washington, PA, just Washington, which is really confusing in these parts. I would definitely have this be, Charleston and Pittsburgh. All right, let's talk about Todd's the way it should be. This is pretty simple. Interstate 68 East, it should be Baltimore and Washington. Maybe signing both of them or alternating them on signs, but that should be the whole thing going east. Cumberland is less important for eastbound traffic because you have those big cities out there. West, I'm fine with signing Cumberland, and obviously with all the hype Maryland is doing, there's no way they're going to sign an out-of-state city after all that hype, so Cumberland is the answer there. And then I'd go straight from Cumberland to Morgantown and skip Frostburg. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Control City Freak. Next week, we're getting to I-69. Anyway, my name is Todd. Thanks a lot, and keep on trucking.